This is a production of Off the Hook Sports with Dave Hooker.
Here we go with Chalk Talk. He's Chris Landry. I am Dave Hooker. And Chris, we got a lot to get to in terms of Tennessee football recruiting some visitors on campus. But I've got to ask you about the Instagram of Arch Manning in an SEC rival uniform. So we're going to talk about that as well. Brought to you by our friends at Owl's Nest Barbecue. Owl's Nest Barbecue has all the barbecue supplies you need right there in Ottawa. It's awesome. Go to owlsnestbbq.com and barbecue's not just the food, it's fantastic. Chris, you've had the spices. They are absolutely awesome. And the rubs and the whole 9 yards are super.
Absolutely, they are. And in fact, I continue to use them on just about everything, even not just the meat, but the vegetables. Been great spring and early summer. Enjoying that. Put on a little too much weight, but other than that, it's been great.
I think you look great.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to share that with you.
Yeah,
And also,
the camera adds 10 pounds, and we've got 4 cameras, so that explains
exactly.
it.
And Midnight Oil as well. And you need to get there if you need any work done on your car in Ottawa. Okay, Chris, let's just go ahead and get down to it. Tennessee with some visitors over the weekend. I want to talk about, before we get to this Arch Manning Instagram in a rival uniform, Aiden Mizell. He is from Florida. Give me your scouting look at him and what are you hearing about where he might end up?
Well, he's a lean receiver with really good long speed, playing speed. He's outstanding after the catch, which really is a big part of what they do in this offense, in every offense, but particularly in this one. I like his quickness in addition to his speed, so he's both quick and fast. I like his burst to separate off the line of scrimmage, and he's fast. I mean, he's a track guy. He's one of the best sprinters in the 400 meters, and you see that long stride in the open field. He can pull away from defenders at the second level, but he's got that slippery, shifty ability that a lot of long speed guys don't have. So, like his quickness in initial movements and after the catch, like his contact balance with the ball in his hands, tracks the ball pretty well on the vertical routes. So after the catch and tracking the ball on vertical routes is a good combination. So we'll see. Obviously, he's got a background in the state of Florida, but he's interested in Tennessee because of their offense and the playmaking ability of receivers. You play a lot. You play, a lot of downs, and it's fun offense. So as we've talked about in the past, those guys are intrigued by Tennessee, their offense. If your skill position got your quarterbacks, your receivers in particular, whether they ultimately get them, don't know. Obviously, they've got some other top-notch schools that are interested in them that have had maybe a little bit more success overall team-wise than Tennessee. But we'll see how that plays out in the end.
Jalen Smith, a linebacker, largely overlooked. What do you think of him? Because I've been told Tennessee's very interested, even though he might not be the highest rated guy in the world.
Well, he's another fast guy. There's a trend there. They love fast guys. I know that the Tennessee staff, Brian Jean Mary, spent a lot of time with them. I know over the weekend, Tim Banks, they like for what Tennessee runs, he'd be an ideal will linebacker. Play some in the box, yes, but he's going to excel at space. So he's able to run. He's able to strike well at the point of attack. Um, but what makes him a fit and maybe a better fit in a higher grade for Tennessee is his speed ability. Not that other people don't like speed, but they basically it's if you watch him on tape, the high school scheme is very similar to Tennessee scheme. They cover them up front, so they don't have to take on and not as much force linebacker against the run, but he plays in space. So when you're given an overall grade to a guy, that he's not going to grade out as well. But if you're looking for someone that's going to roam around be covered up in front of him, so he's freed up to run, make plays, go out and make plays. He's that type of guy. So I can see why they like him maybe more than some other people might.
So, Tennessee with a relatively small recruiting weekend, as they've got a couple of weeks away. I would say not this weekend, but the next, from what I've been told from people at Tennessee, that's the big Mac Daddy weekend. Is that consistent across the SEC, that last week in June, or what can you tell us about that time frame?
I think you normally like to get kind of the last shot at a guy, but like anything else, sometimes it's just fitting a kid's schedule. And there's a little bit of a strategy. Sometimes you want to have you get folks that you get a lot of the big time. Well, obviously the elite programs, all they have is big time guys, but maybe your big targets come together, get to know one another. Let's say you've got 4 or 5 big time targets, and one or two of them you are really good shape with them. I mean, you're the favorite. You know that's probably where they're coming to your place, and you got two others that maybe leaning somewhere else. You may want to have those guys come in the same weekend if you can work the schedules out, so those two can work them over the weekend and say, hey, we ought to do this together. We ought to be together. We can build this. Boom, boom, boom. But then in other cases, depending upon the personality, some guys like to be the center of attention. And, so it really is about knowing your recruits, the personality, and then you got to figure it into the schedule. I mean, you may be only available at a certain time. So I think you got to factor all of that in to figure out your weekends.
Let me ask you this, Chris. Arch Manning in an Alabama uniform and on Instagram over the weekend, and just handicap the field. Where might he go? I mean, I don't think Ole Miss or Tennessee, which would be the schools he has ties in. And then I have a weird idea that I'm going to throw at you, but I don't think it's them. Where do you think he ends up?
I think it's Alabama, Georgia, or Texas. It's what I felt. And Texas would, if their program was in a little better shape, winning wise right now, they I think be the clear favorite. They're still in it because they really like Sark. A lot of it is, I think any experiences that he's going to go, it's going to be a great college experience, which he wants that. He's going to get that in any place. He wants to win and compete for a championship. So, that takes Texas and okay, can you be good enough to help get them there? Have they done enough to where you're just going to be, you know, a good player and are you going to be able to elevate them? That's what I think they're having to go through. Obviously, Alabama and Georgia, those are the two best programs in the country right now. So that makes a lot of sense. And the SEC, and I do think that they have hit it off with Bill O'Brien. I know that Peyton has spent some time and he knows Bill O'Brien, but he's close. Peyton is with Tom Brady. I know they were rivals, but Tom Brady, was coached by Bill O'Brien, and there's been a lot of reconnaissance evaluation of how that would work, and hard coach, tough coach, which that's what the Mannings like. So I think there's that Alabama's, you know, been a big, made a lot of strides, and I think Bill O'Brien is a major reason why. I do think that I felt that would a couple of years ago when this was kind of down the road as well, is Nick going to even be coaching then? That would be a factor. But obviously, I think the trend is he'd probably be there another 3 years, and maybe he'll be the last great quarterback for Nick Saban. So I think there's some of that. But then, there's a lot of positivity with Georgia. Athens is a great campus. They're winning. They want to have a type of program where you can build in pro style, and they run pro style offense. So I think it comes down to them, to one of those three. Um, Always a surprise. I think the big thing is they would like to have this done, I would think, by the summer, so he can have the fall to just be a student, finish his year, play football, be with his teammates, and put this behind him. But I think it's one of those three. At least that's the way I felt for a while, and nothing I've heard, suggests that there's somebody else infiltrating that enough. So that's kind of where I see it.
Yeah, and I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if he wants to compete at a championship level, like right now, and have a sure situation, I'm not knocking Ole Miss or Tennessee, but the sure situation is Georgia or Alabama or maybe Texas. I guess it could be. We'll see what happens there. But here's my theory. Here's what I would do. Chris, tell me this is crazy and what you've heard about the person I'm going to throw at you. I would call David Cutcliffe, who's an advisor to the SEC, and I would say, where would you like to coach? And and he picks the place, and that's where I go. I just think I would want David Cutcliffe involved. And I'm sure he has been. I'm sure there's been some tutoring or something like that. But I would want him involved in my tutelage after I saw my two brothers get drafted 1-2.
Well, I think a couple of things. He'll always have David to tap into David Cutcliffe to be like a mentor, and a teacher. And David has a lot of time to do that now because he can do his SEC stuff, and yet, and I don't know. I haven't talked to David in a while. I don't know where he's gonna. I guess. Well, he's moving to Birmingham. That's right. I'm sorry. I take that back. So he's going to be living in Birmingham. It's very easy to go there and spend time like the Mannings used to go to Durham and in the summer and spend a week with Cut. And so he absolutely can do that. But David doesn't want to coach anymore. He's not going to get a coaching job, and he's certainly not going to get a job at one of these big schools. I mean, it's one of the reasons why, like, for example, Arch visited Virginia. Well, his sister goes to school there. His mom went to school, so, but he wasn't going to go there. So I don't, it's a nice sentiment 5, 6 years ago,
Yeah.
maybe, but Cut just does not want to coach anymore. I mean, I think he wants to coach. I don't think he wants to be a head coach anymore and do that. And I don't think he necessarily wants to be working for somebody, if you know what I mean, as a quarterback coach. And I think the SEC stuff is intriguing. I didn't know he was headed there, but when he announced it several weeks ago, I said, that's fine. He's got a relationship, but then I think he'll be very involved in if they want him to be in Arch and doing some stuff in the off season. Obviously, they've got the money; they can go spend it. They can do whatever they want to do as a family. So that's kind of how I read that.
Yeah, I can see that, and I wasn't saying he would be a head coach. And they're talking about expanding the coaching staff, which I think would be a good move. But it sounds like to me you're hearing that David Cutcliffe is, who I know pretty well, but I haven't spoken to in a year or so, is just done coaching. So that's kind of out the window.
Yeah, that type. But it would be interesting. I can tell you, there's a place up the road from Birmingham that if if as a consultant, and you're right, if that is something that would be interesting, would he want to do that and be a consultant and maybe just be like another quarterback? I don't know. I would just say that don't know how Bill O'Brien would accept it. Probably would. But yeah, I could see him doing that at Alabama if he wanted to. I think that would be a bargaining chip for Georgia or Alabama if they could get Cut to take that type of role, and he could have some on-field coaching type because that's what you'd want to do. I don't know that that's going to be particularly timing-wise going to work out because he's accepted the SEC job, and I don't think he'd want to just jump from that right away. But I don't know. I haven't talked to him about that or anything.
No, it'd be interesting. If anything could pull you out of retirement, it might be him. Last thing, real quick, can you just tell me, is he really that good? I mean, is he a
I think he's really good. I tell you what he is, and look, at he's more athletic than Eli or Peyton. He reminds you a little bit more of Archie for those that are old enough to remember Archie when he's at Ole Miss. He moves very, very well. The cerebral part of the game, the accuracy. I mean, I think he has a ways to go there. I think one of the things that they're looking at, and they're trying to trying to go through this process, and all the schools we've touched on it, and why, and can winning and all that. That's great, but they know the importance, and you just hit on it with Cut. They know the importance of finding that guy that can teach and development. That's why Sarkisian is in it. Because it's not Texas, it's Sark. That they've got a really good relationship with him, and they like him, and I think they'd like him to coach him. But I don't know that the other things line up. So that's what I think is important, and I think he needs it, like any young quarterback, to be developed. It's people say, "Oh, well, he can learn from his uncles." That's not. His uncles are not gonna. It can help him with technique and things, but it's going to come down to how well he performs, how well he's coached at college. So I think that's the biggest thing, and probably going to be the deciding factor of where he ultimately goes, because I think it's pretty close, and that's going to tip it in the scales of one school.
Owl's Nest Barbecue has the rubs and the sauces that we told you about, but they also have some incredible grills. Go there for Father's Day and take care of your pops. You'll love it. It is such a good place. Owl's Nest Barbecue. Just supplies everywhere. If you like barbecue, you'll like that. And don't forget about right next door, Midnight Oil. They will take care of your car, a proud Michelin dealer. That is Chalk Talk. Have a fantastic rest of the week, everyone. We will talk to you soon. And don't forget to check out LandryFootball.com for inside perspective that you will not get anywhere else. That is LandryFootball.com. For Chris, I'm Dave. That's a production of Off the Hook Sports.